Woman Who Chat is sponsored by Grow Radio. Grow Radio is an online radio station dedicated to bringing you a different podcast on the hour, every hour. I'm proud that Woman Who Chat is played on Grow Radio every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and Friday at 8 a.m. and to be a part of their podcasting community. If you want to listen to the station, explore their shows, check out many of the blogs to improve your podcasting skills, or get your podcast onto Grow Radio, head over to growradio.uk today. Welcome to Woman Who Chat, and today I'm chatting with Jodie Brookes of Brook Care Solutions. Hi Jodie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Sandra. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. And I should have said the award-winning Jodie Brookes, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. So first, Jodie, tell us what you do now.
Well, I've got two jobs at the moment, but my main focus is Brookes Care Solutions, which is helping people find the right care for older relatives.
And you say you've got two roles right now. That's really common with a lot of women in business. They're almost have to get the bread and butter coming in while they're building something up new. And the passion is with the something new, but we've got to do the bread and butter thing. And I've been there. I know exactly how you feel. And I only transitioned from that recently. And it's a wonderful feeling when you do. So I'd just like to give you that reassurance if that's your plan in the future. But Brookes Care Solutions, I mean, care is, I think, a really challenging area, one I've experienced personally. But tell us what you did before. I mean, you were a nurse, yeah?
Yeah, I still am a nurse. I've got an active PIN number still, and I keep that up. It's really important to me. In my early 20s, I spent 3 years training for that PIN number, so it's not something you want to let go lightly. But my journey started quite young, really. Age 14, I was a kitchen assistant in a nursing home, so that was a real eye-opener, getting to see what went on in nursing homes. And then I started university at 18, and I picked the wrong subject, to be honest, and I just thought, oh dear, this is not good. And I quit and thought, well, I've got to get a job in the meantime while I'm deciding what to do with my life. So I went and got a job as a care assistant because they were really easy to get. You didn't need any qualifications. And to my surprise, I absolutely loved it. So by my early 20s, I'd gone back to uni to train as a nurse. And then by mid-20s, I was running my own nursing homes in the private sector.
Wow, I really do admire that because I know how challenging and difficult it is working in a care home. My mum is in her second care home now, having escaped from the first, but we won't go there. But I know that the staff retention in care homes is really difficult because they tend to be at a lower pay scale. And it's because of some of the jobs that they have to do and the challenging behaviour they have to deal with. It's not the most attractive job. And therefore, I think the people that go into that sector truly are special people.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a long way to go, really, with rewarding those roles in society, which is so important. We don't pay them enough. The training has got a lot better, I have to say. In the 20 years that I've been working in the sector, I don't really remember doing that much training at all when I was 18. It was there's your uniform and you worked alongside somebody for a while and that was your training, really. But now it is a lot more stringent and standards are a lot better in that respect. So that is good. But, they should be. Care is very expensive and people pay a lot of money to be there.
Oh, don't I know it? That's come as a huge shock. And I talk often about this sandwich revolution that we just finished caring for our own families and then we end up caring for our parents. And I spent 10 months as a full-time carer for my mum, and it's not something I would wish on anybody. And eventually we had to put her into the care system. But because she had income from pensions and things, she fell in that awkward gap where she couldn't quite afford care, but she had too much income and assets to get support. And so we're in this whole minefield of the care system. And it's just so hard to navigate. It wasn't one place we could find out all the information. There wasn't a place where somebody had the time to speak to us. I think that was the difficult thing. Though the social workers were brilliant, we got one call every 6 months and that was it. We had no port of call that we could go to and say, where do we go from here? And we've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Had we had somebody like you that could help with that. So what exactly do you do for people to help them through that difficult time?
Well, I think a lot of people are in the situation like you found yourself in. You're either between statutory services who are really stretched and really are just doing what they have to do. A lot of it is firefighting, so they don't have that time to sit with you and get to know what your priorities are and what sort of things you like and where you actually want to be and what sort of care you want to have. There's just not realistic. And actually, a lot of self-funding people who I primarily serve, which means they've got over the 23,250 in assets, don't have a lot to do with the local authority, to be honest, because they look at their savings and they think, well, I'm not going to get any help, so we've got to sort this out ourselves. And to a great degree, they're right. And if you've got no care background, you don't know what questions to ask. Sometimes you don't even know what sort of care you're looking for. So
Mm.
you're between the statutory services who are stretched and essentially the care providers who are making a sale out of it. So there's no, well, very little, it's becoming more common now, but there was no sort of advocate just for you, just for your needs, with your needs at the center of everything. There are online search engines you can use, but even they are based on algorithms. They're very high level. They're not looking at a bespoke service for you. And also some of them can get sort of incentive payments, bigger incentive payments from other care providers. So they might get your details rather than somebody else. They all work differently. But the reason that I wanted to have my service as a private paying service is so that I had the time to focus on exactly what the person needs, and everything I do is in their best interest, basically.
So it's very person-centered. And I found that when my mother was in hospital, I'm talking about my mother because it's my personal experience and it's
Yeah,
probably different for everybody. But I think after talking to so many people, it's very common. And she was in hospital and they put her onto a sort of halfway house, which is a hospital ward, which has since closed down, believe it or not. And she was in there for several weeks while they assessed her and did all their sort of things. And then they suggested they'd send her for up to 6 weeks in a care home. But we got no choice over that placement. She was literally sent there. Fortunately for us, she liked it. And she was there for nearly 2 years
wow,
happily, and the turnover of staff was absolutely fantastic. It was great. They had very little staff turnover, the same stuff. The problem was she was going through a psychotic episode and a worsening of a dementia, which they couldn't meet the needs of. And I don't think they understood what to do with her. And
yeah,
had they had that conversation with us, had we realised what was happening, had we had that expert knowledge, we'd have realised we needed to move her. But she escaped before we did that. Now she's settled in a home which is a dementia care specialist,
yeah,
but it took us days and visits and searching. I think we spent about 6 weeks of our time whilst working, visiting homes and looking. Had we known what there was at our fingertips, we probably would have gone that route. But we
sure,
and at one point the hospital turned around to us and we said, well, where are you sending her? And they said, oh no, you have to find that.
yeah. And that can be quite a shock for people.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was. And we said, well, we don't know. How do we find out if they've got spaces? And they said, you ring round. But when
mhm.
you ring round, they haven't got time to talk to you because they're busy doing the jobs that they're doing in the care home. So it was an absolute minefield. It really was. So what are the sort of things you can do for people? What are the things that you could take? What could you have taken away from me to make my life easier?
Yeah. Well, my most popular package is called the Best Fit Care Package, and that's what it says on the tin, really. I find the best fit care for you. So that's £825, which, when you see the amount of work that goes into it, is a bargain, I think. It's really good value. And what that involves is I will assess your situation. So ideally, that would mean speaking with the person that needs the care. Sometimes family comes to me and the person's too poorly to have that conversation with me. Perhaps they're in hospital, they're very poorly, they want to get home. So I do a lot by Zoom because time is of the essence for a lot of families. So I'd complete the assessment. And because of my nursing background, that's a real holistic assessment. And it even pulls in things that families don't expect. So for example, physio or OT, or and they cut their toenails. It sounds really simple, but it's amazing if you ask the right questions. People say, well, no, I haven't been able to reach my toenails for sort of 6 months. And the family can be sometimes not even aware of these things. So it's a real holistic assessment to start with. And then I go away and I do all the legwork for you. So I've got a process that I filter all the care providers through: quality, online reviews, care quality commission reports, a whole host of things that I do. And then I boil it down to 4 care providers that I think are the most suitable. And I put all of that information into an electronic document for the family so they can easily share it with family members. And it's got all clickable links in it to take you straight to the websites, all the fees, anything contractual that I think might be worth noting. And then you as a family make a decision. I walk you through the document on Zoom and explain everything in it. You make a decision, and then I make the introduction. I make the call to the care provider and say, this family want to go ahead. So essentially, I'm shielding them from the whole sales process. I'm shielding them from the phone calls, the follow-ups, the emails, being on an email list. I am the buffer. And in a real stressful time, that can be real lifesaver for a lot of people, especially if you're still working, as many of us are, maybe even looking after children. Even if they're teenagers, they still need a lot of assistance. So you get a lot of women particularly that get real burnt out at this time of life. There's a real potential for serious stress issues. So my service is just one thing that you can just hand over and say, deal with this for me. And that's essentially what I do.
Yeah. And having gone through that situation twice, really, the time when I was caring full time and trying to find carers to come from the community, which was my mother kept sacking the carers, which was really difficult. I'd get home and I'd say, well, you haven't eaten, the carers haven't been in. Oh, I sent them away. And it was trying to find care agencies that would be firm with her, but not bullying, if you know what I mean. That took a whole months and months, so much so that I had to step back from my business at that time to be able to deal with that. And I've spoken to other women in business that have had to do the same, because traditionally that job falls on the female. And no disrespect to men who may be listening to this, but women tend to take the care and responsibilities. And no disrespect to my brother, but his wife has taken on his element of helping me, and we do it together. But he's there in the background, but he's delegated it quite effectively to his wife. And I think men tend to do that. With these things, you're probably better suited for sorting this out. And when you're running a business or working full time, you don't have the capacity. And as you say, because of the time of life where this generally happens to women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, your whole premenopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, you haven't really got the capacity to take on any more. And it's almost as if you've just got your children off your hands, grandchildren are starting to pop in, and then you've got this coming the other way as well. And you are in that sandwich in the middle. And having gone through that, if I went through that situation again, it would be an absolutely no-brainer to get someone such as yourself to take that away from me. That's all I wanted, was to say, somebody do this, somebody take this away from me.
Yeah, because it can have serious consequences. They've done research on carers and the impact on carers, which is what you were, a carer. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
If you are a carer, you are at greater risk of depression. If you are a perimenopausal woman, you are at greater risk of depression. And you layer those things on top of each other, and you can have a bit of a problem there.
Yeah.
So I really, and it is mainly women that come to me, and I really enjoy supporting them through that. And because I am a nurse, and there's plenty of care consultants. It's a relatively new thing, because 20 years ago, social services and district nurses probably would have had the time to help you with this. But reality is they don't now. So my roles like mine are becoming more common. But what I feel I bring to the table is, with a nursing registration, if I'm dealing with a hospital ward or a discharge coordinator, and I speak to them and I can give them my nursing PIN number and say, the family have given you permission to speak to me, I can get my foot in the door in places where perhaps other people might not be able to, and have that clinical dialogue, especially with people towards the end of life when things get a bit more complex. And I think that's what differentiates me actually from a lot of the people out there. And it's what I enjoy doing as well. So,
And
yeah.
I suppose you understand the complex medication as well, because From my experience, we were trying to have conversations with the hospital and with the care home, being that intermediary in the middle, and trying to explain why she needed certain medication and the effects it had on her, and why even simple things like this week, the care home called me and said, we're giving her a flu jab and a COVID. And I had to explain again, even though it was on all the forms, she can't have the two together because she has an adverse reaction. And
Right.
it's really trying to spell that out. But again, it's all these challenges and all these things that you don't know and what you don't know until you're in the middle of it and in the midst of it. So what made you start this business?
Well, I've been an expert witness for 12 years at the time. That is my other job that I referred to at the beginning, and I still do that, and I still enjoy it. It's a very rewarding job. It can be quite sad at times because most of the cases that I assist the court with are terminal cancers or delayed diagnosis cases. So where somebody has perhaps been to the hospital, I've got a lump, no, it's not cancer, and they keep going back, and then unfortunately by the time it's actually diagnosed, it can be end of life. So I do report on a lot of sad cases, and went through my own care journey with my mum last year. She was very sick, and she wanted to stay at home. She was fed up of being in hospital, being prodded and poked. She'd had a really rough year, and she was very poorly, and we managed to keep her at home with the help of the local hospice at home service. But even and she died last year. She died, so we did do that end of life care at home. But even I underestimated how quickly things can deteriorate. So there were nights where me and Dad were awake, where we couldn't get any help. And the message really is, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. If I'd have done a bit more advanced planning and perhaps had a carer in there, a private carer for the last week or something, it could have been very different. We did our best, but with my work as an expert witness, I see a lot of families go through the same process. And because I speak to them after the person has died, I've got quite a unique perspective on what is actually happening on the ground in England right now with end of life care. And hospices are put under so much pressure. And I hear the same things again and again. There was no one to come. And I know that sounds probably quite frightening, but we can't sugarcoat what happens in some areas. It's geographically patchy. You might live in an area with a great hospice that's got a hospice at home service. Your local authority might be really well funded and you get great care. You might not. And I think knowing that there is help out there, someone can come and advise you on this and help you get the right care in place to bolster what is given by the local authority. Most people don't even know that's an option. So it's, for me, it's really trying to just raise awareness that you don't have to do it on your own.
Yeah, and I think I experienced that as well when my dad was terminally ill and we couldn't get support, and we phoned what you'd expect to phone Macmillan and expect to speak to a Macmillan nurse, and we got through to some department, and my mum came off the phone in tears and she said, they've sent me some leaflets. And there was no help at all, no support, nothing. And my mum and I cared for my dad until he passed away at home. But that was very challenging. And it's sad to realise that these organisations that are set up to support just don't have capacity. They don't have the capacity to support right now. So it's very valuable work that you're doing. Let's move on and let's talk about why you entered the Solopreneur Awards.
Yes. So over the last year of starting a business, which has all been very new to me, for my whole career, my work has been given to me in a sense, and I've never had to put myself out there, market myself. It's just come across my desk, so to speak. And it's been an evolving journey. I've joined a women's network. So then you're around people that are talking about things like Woman Who, and you discover a whole new world basically. And it was a lady called Sasha, actually. She's a life coach who told me, she said, have you heard of Sandra Garlick and the Woman Who movement? I said, no. And so I looked you up, and that's where it started. So I just joined your Facebook group. And then I realised when I joined Athena that lots of the ladies there were already very involved in your world. So the two things came together. And last year I came to the Woman Who Awards. I hadn't entered or anything. I just wanted to come along and see what it was all about. And I loved it. I just feel so safe networking with women and working with women. I don't know what it is. It's not like I've had particularly loads of bad experiences working with men. It's not that. It's just a different energy, and I really feel comfortable in that space. So when it came round to awards time for Solopreneur, of course you've got the doubting Debbie in the back of your mind saying, you've not been in business long enough to, all of the thoughts, you're too new, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I decided to shut the door on doubting Debbie and just apply anyway. Very much encouraged by the women in my network, which was lovely. Never expecting to win the award, genuinely never expecting to win the award. Just wanting to dip my toe in the awards process for future reference, really. I was thinking, well, I'm serious about this business. I want to raise the profile. I need to start getting involved in things like this. So I just wrote a really honest application as to what had brought me there. And I liked the fact that it wasn't a popularity contest, as you say. It's not all your friends vote for you. I'm not dissing those kind of awards at all, but I really liked the fact it was judged independently by people that didn't know us, really. So when I won, as you could remember, I don't know whether you remember, my chin was on the floor when you called my name. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's lovely to see that. And everybody else that I've interviewed, the winners, I've said that energy that came from the audience for each winner,
Yeah.
it was like a surge of energy towards the stage, and that everybody was generally happy. And the whoops of joy from the Athena table were loud and resounding because you were obviously well supported on the day.
Yeah.
And I think people say it's like a blur moment. The first thing is, did they call my name? Then when you realize they did call your name is, oh, I've got to go on the stage. And then you come on the stage, the emotion comes out, and I'm reading the words out from the judges, and then everybody's saying, what did she say? Which is why I send the wording out afterwards, because people are just like so emotional about the moment. But obviously it was well deserved, and the recognition you got for the Special Recognition Award. So congratulations for that. What sort of, you said you shared your honest story, and that's what because I run a lot of masterclasses leading up to the awards, because I believe that the process itself has value to anybody entering, and I want it to have value rather than just saying, send your entries in, oh, you're not successful. At least they've got that process to look back on. What do you think was the most valuable aspect of actually writing it down?
I think the more you talk about where you've come from and why you've set up your business, the more crystallized it becomes in your own mind. And that's what I felt when I was writing out that application. It was like everything I'd done in the last 12 months leading up, I was able to set it out on paper. And I felt quite proud of myself, to be honest. I thought, I just had a bereavement, a serious bereavement. Me and my mum were really close. And I think actually that lit a fire under me, if I'm honest, like my experience. And then you were able to plot your journey from what was the seed of an idea 12 months ago to where you are now, which is having paying clients. And you've created this thing, and it's a moment of reflection. And I
Mm.
don't think we do that very much, do we, in life? It was so, well, I know I certainly am nothing.
And it is, and that's why I created the application as it is. It's that reflection piece. And I say to somebody, even if you don't want to go ahead and win an award or whatever, just that reflection piece is worth doing at least once a year. I suggest people do it once a quarter. Keep those questions, keep asking yourself those questions, because they are really that they're designed in a way to give people that value of that reflection piece that we, as you say, never get the time to do.
Yeah, and I like the idea that you say each year that you do it, you get to look back at where you were last year because you look at last year's application. It's a great little, when you're working on your own, you haven't got somebody doing an appraisal for you. This
Yes.
is
Yeah,
your own appraisal.
yeah, it's like a mini appraisal. I'll use that word in future. I do say it's a snapshot in time, but it is a self-appraisal. Yeah. Well, sadly, we've run out of time. I could chat to you all day about the care situation in the country, and I wish you every success. You're a deserving award winner. I always ask my guests to leave us with a piece of advice, wisdom, or a top tip, and I call it your mic drop moment. What would yours be?
Okay, I don't know whether it's a very dramatic mic drop, but my one piece of advice I would like to convey to people that find themselves in this situation is don't wait till the last minute, and you don't have to do it alone. There is help out there.
Great piece of advice there. Today I've been chatting with Jodie Brookes, founder of Brookes Care Solutions. Thank you, Jodie.
Thanks, Sandra.